If you've been living in a cave this past month, then chances are you've heard about NESST, the National Emergency Services Support Taskforce, that is being fronted by DE Group Chairman Paul Ford. Well, now NESST is actively seeking recruits to the taskforce. We caught up with Paul and with his colleague Mark Smith to find out more about NESST. And I started by asking Paul to explain precisely what NESST is and what it hopes to achieve.
NESST is the National Emergency Services Support Task Force. It's a mechanism for supporting the emergency services, particularly USAR, in a blue light phase of any of their responses. Instances where they know they've got persons trapped, or they suspect they have persons trapped, or they need just some structural advice to enter a building safely. They just want some support on that. Or where vital infrastructure could have been compromised or could be about to be compromised, and they need some advice on the possible reaction of a building or structures. NESST members, it's an opportunity for NESST members to provide some pro bono support to the emergency services. It's our opportunity as an industry to be seen to be giving something back, which I think is really important and readily available. It's just some inconvenience and some expertise to support these people. And it's obviously an accolade to be recognised as an industry expert in our field within a complicated, difficult industry, to be able to say, and we can support the emergency services at certain points in time. I mean, they're hugely qualified, trained individuals. But that doesn't stop them needing somebody else in the room to just inform their decisions, and that's what NESST is about. It's about helping them have an informed decision and just reaching out and getting expert advice to either ratify the thinking or actually just give them something they just simply didn't know, and just reassure them. That's what NESST can provide.
How will NESST liaise with the fire service?
Good question, Mark. Ordinarily, the Urban Search and Rescue Advisor, commonly known as a UA, would arrive at a scene and make an assessment based on his understanding and knowledge of the incident and what is required from the Urban Search and Rescue team, and then make an informed decision on what further assistance could be provided through NESST. Once that decision has been made, he will then contact NESST through the dedicated 24/7 telephone number, or through the London Operations Centre, or on a national basis through the National Resilience and Assurance Team, who will then determine the level of response required to a particular incident. Now, that could be a simple means of looking at photographs or looking at imagery from drones through a secure communications network, or in some cases it could actually mean responding on site. And when you respond on site, all NESST members will have the requisite PPE and logo PPE and identification cards, along with the documentary, the pack that supports the incident response, which will include assessment forms, decision-making logs, and will help the responder really support that urban search and rescue team in making the right decisions.
So what specific skill sets are you looking to recruit?
So we're looking for structural engineers that come with experience of temporary works, obviously. Temporary works in a demolition environment, ideally. Obviously, demolition engineers, IDE members, non-IDE members, people that have good experience around temporary works and, of course, preferably dangerous structures. We're looking for demolition contractors that hold that skill set within their businesses. And we are not precluding anybody that comes with a skill set that they believe would be beneficial to be on a register to support the emergency services if they reach out for a certain type of skill. So we're very open, but we are quite focused in the primary objectives of membership, which is centred around temporary works, demolition engineering, advice and experience around how a building can react, will react, and could be supported in a temporary condition to enable emergency services to do a certain recovery or response.
How will you go about selecting members?
Well, Mark, in the first instance, we were looking for recognised experts, industry recognised experts, to put forward their CV to NESST. And what we're looking for is demonstrable experience in dealing with and remediating dangerous structures and working in these types of dangerous and very technically challenging environments. The initial response and questionnaire will be completed, and that will be then peer reviewed by members of the NESST board. They will also take into account their geographical location. Bear in mind, this is looking to be a nationwide provision. On that initial sweep through those applications, we will then look into interview potential candidates or potential NESST members online via Teams or Zoom. And that interview will be undertaken by recognised industry experts, and that peer review will then determine whether a member is successful in actually joining the NESST team.
So will there be a membership charge?
Individual members of NESST will not be asked to pay an annual subscription or membership fee. We really do appreciate that individuals making themselves available, for 24/7 responses that may or may not happen is a contribution enough. But we are asking corporate members if they can pay £1,000. That's almost a support mechanism, a sponsorship of NESST on an annual basis to enable us to administer the company. It's a not-for-profit company, of course. No one's going to get a salary from this. No one's going to get a benefit in kind from this. All we are going to do is maintain a healthy website and provide suitable, adequate training, which will include training on the training ground, which Mark will run through in a moment. So there is a small charge for corporate members, but no charge for private individuals.
This kind of work is going to be exceptionally demanding. Will there be specific training available for NESST members?
Well, yes, Mark. We're going to look to build on the links we have with London Fire Brigade, in particular London Fire Brigade USAR teams. And we attend a regular annual training event, which is typically held in Lincolnshire. And this event will be inviting NESST members down to join us on the fire ground at the incident ground and to physically take part in incidents and to look at the command and control procedures, to look at the equipment that the fire brigade deploy to incidents and dangerous structure incidents, and also participate in source selection and work with the USAR operators to really understand how they work and the thinking and the doctrine that sits behind it all. In conjunction with this, we're looking to develop online training and CPD events that will supplement this physical on-the-ground training and build upon the knowledge that when a NESST member is asked or does respond to an incident, he has every tool in the tool chest to enable him to give him the best advice possible.
How many members do you think you'll need to provide the national coverage that is obviously necessary?
So we are looking at having 30 individual members across the country. Certainly in England and Wales to begin with. They will closely follow the locations of obviously major cities and towns, but also the 21 USAR teams that are spread across the country. We are hopeful that we can take this into Scotland as well, and there is a conversation in that regard happening as well. So 30 individual members, and then we're supporting that with a further 20 corporate members to just balance off, because the corporate members have a greater ability to actually then send out some equipment should the local authorities come and get involved in a certain response and instruct us to get to take further action. And that further action is actually is not part of NESST. As soon as the blue light phase passes over to a local authority and the local authority instructs action, then that will become a commercial relationship between the entity, it's the private individual, or the corporate business and the local authority, and they will resolve those issues between them. But obviously, the corporate entity has yard of plant, equipment, temporary works, material, components, and so forth. So there's 30 individuals and 20 corporate across the country.
NESST is a not-for-profit organisation, but I guess members will be looking for the administration of that organisation to be very open. How will you go about ensuring transparency to members?
Sitting on the board of NESST, we have independent members drawn from the fire services, from the local authorities, and we have an accountancy expert there who will ensure good husbandry of the accounts. It's very, very much open book, very much transparent, and very much auditable by anybody that's remotely interested in seeing those facts and figures and seeing what sits behind the organisation.
It struck me that there are certain similarities between NESST and the National Federation of Demolition Contractors. Do you see NESST as a more focused and maybe more altruistic competitor to the NFDC?
Mark, it's a very fair question, of course. I think what I just spoke about in terms of sharing information is perhaps a little bit in competition with the NFDC, but that's not ultimately what I want to do at all. NESST is a very unique provision, and it's a very unique skill set that sits in a very small part of our very broad industry. The NFDC, the IDE are two very valuable parts to our industry as well. But it does seem to me that utopia would be to have one voice in our industry that represents everything, and these parts, individuals, corporates, and specialisms should sit underneath that one voice, and that one voice, might turn out to need some changes in the future. I don't know. As I mentioned a moment ago, the industry is going to get challenged, and we as a collective need to think about how we present ourselves going forward. And I suspect we might need to make some changes. But NESST is not a competition. It is not in competition with the NFDC or IDE. It wants to take the best of everything that they've got to make NESST a success. They've got to coexist. They've got to share experiences across them willingly, to benefit everybody in our industry. It's a cultural, maybe a bit of a cultural change to broaden the access to that. And listen, I'm not right. I could well be wrong on all of this, but looking at NESST, the short answer to your question is absolutely not. But I do hope that the industry, the NFDC and the IDE really get behind NESST. And we all go forward together as something much better and much stronger. So we're going to be very, very proud of moving forward.
So I guess the final question is, how does a demolition company or a demolition engineer go about applying to become a member?
Well, Mark, it's quite straightforward, really. You can either contact us through the website, or either through myself and Paul's email address, which are going to be flashed up at the end of the show.